Well, hello. The evening edition here of strengthening and weakening arguments. There really is no magic to this. On the LSAT, you're going to be directed to strengthen or weaken an argument. And all they're testing you on is whether you understand that concept. So an argument, a series of words composed of sentences and clauses that endeavor or attempt to offer support for some proposition, the proposition being the conclusion. So when you look at the issue being to weaken or strengthen an argument, it comes right out of court, that's for sure. You need to understand what the role in the argument is. So you can't weaken an argument if you don't understand the role in the argument of each sentence, perhaps each clause. So you can almost write this out yourself. If you sit down and instead of writing sentences, you write in the role in the argument of the sentence you'll place there. Let's say you have 3 sentences and a conclusion. And in advance of that, you write out the first sentence is going to contain information contrary to the conclusion. The second sentence will contain information that separates itself from the first sentence. So the second sentence role in the argument is to basically dispute or challenge the first sentence. And then the third sentence is going to be information that supports the second sentence. So say you just write down on paper, first sentence, contrary to conclusion. That's going to be the role in the argument. Second sentence, information that attacks the first sentence, which means ultimately it'll support the conclusion. And then third sentence, the role in the argument is going to be to support the information in the second sentence. Fourth sentence, the conclusion. That's it. You got it. That's what they're after. And whatever words you put in there, it doesn't really matter. You can strengthen an argument in one of 3 ways. Either in my hypothetical, right? Because if you want to strengthen the argument, you could introduce information to weaken the first sentence, because the first sentence, the objective of the first sentence is to weaken the conclusion. So one way of strengthening the argument is to weaken that which weakens the conclusion. That's one way. Second way, you go to the premises that actually support the conclusion. That would be my example, the second and the third sentence. And you lend support to those. You make them clear. So there's some answer choice that makes the second or the third sentence more compelling. Okay, that's one way. So one way you strengthen or weaken an argument is you go directly to the explicit information. The second way, again, if we're talking about strengthening, the second way is something comes in from out of the blue that's going to support the conclusion. It may support the conclusion from an entirely different direction that the second and the third sentence lend support. But it's going to lend support. The thing is, it wasn't raised in the explicit argument, but doesn't have to be raised in the explicit argument. That's just fine. So one other way to support the conclusion is you're reading information that comes in from nowhere, but you say to yourself, if that answer choice had been a premise in the argument, it would have made it more likely the conclusion was valid. Okay, that's the second way. Third way to support an argument is to dismiss any competition, meaning, if your conclusion is if the state is Mississippi, well, if answer choice B, recites that it's not Arkansas, well, then to some degree you strengthen the conclusion that it's Mississippi by eliminating a competing choice. So that's really all there is to this. I mean, just be aware the role in the argument is what it's about, and weakening is just the opposite. If you wanted to weaken that same argument, well, you go to that first sentence and you'd want to add support to it, because you're trying to weaken the conclusion. If you're trying to weaken an argument and you're dealing with the second or the third sentences in my hypothetical, well, then you would introduce an answer choice that would attack either the second or the third or both sentences. Second way, you can bring a fact in from nowhere. Same thing, right? This fact comes in from out of the blue. It's an entirely different tangent. But had that fact been included in the original argument, it would have weakened the conclusion. That's way number two. And way number three is you activate a competing conclusion. So you indicate that, maybe it was Arkansas and not Mississippi. And that's all there is to it. So go back, think about how you think. And now we're going to get into the series using IRAC of how to resolve strengthening and weakening issues. And let's see how this all turns out.